The moment the countdown hit 0, Commander Lisa Grant pressed a single button. High above Earth, hidden among what the aliens thought were old communications satellites, 47 fusion reactors came to life. They had been there for decades, slowly positioned over years, disguised as space junk and obsolete technology. Now they showed their true purpose. Energy pulsed out in a coordinated wave. It wasn't heat or light or anything the Calreth sensors could detect in time. It was a carefully tuned electromagnetic pulse designed specifically to overload the type of shield generators the aliens used. Project Longshot had studied every piece of alien technology they could find over 7 decades. Every crashed probe, every strange signal, every unexplained encounter. They had learned and prepared. On the bridge of the Eternal Judgment, every screen went dark simultaneously. The lights died. The hum of the engine stopped. Emergency systems tried to activate, but the pulse had been too strong, too precise. It had burned through their shields before they even knew they were under attack and fried every major system in the process. Captain Vrenkal grabbed the edge of his console as the artificial gravity failed for a moment, before backup systems caught it. Red emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange shadows across the bridge. "Report!" he shouted. His sensor officer checked his backup panel, his face showing confusion and growing fear. "All main systems are offline, Captain. Shields are down, weapons are down. The main reactor is in emergency shutdown. All 11 other ships are reporting the same status." How is this possible? They're primitives. They don't have this technology. But even as he said it, Vrenkal knew he was wrong. The evidence was all around him. His proud warship, capable of destroying planets, was now floating dead in space. Whoever these humans were, they were not primitives. In the Colorado Command Center, Grant watched her screens with satisfaction. Electromagnetic pulse successful. All enemy vessels are dead in space. Their shields collapsed 0.3 seconds before impact. They never saw it coming. Phase 2, General Harris ordered. Behind Earth's moon, 6 ships that had been hiding in the shadows came to life. They were unlike anything humanity had ever shown the world. Sleek and dark, covered in adaptive panels that bent light around them, powered by fusion reactors that Earth's public didn't know existed. These were humanity's first true warships, built from a combination of human ingenuity and carefully reverse-engineered alien technology, gathered over decades. The ships moved with impossible speed. Their drives didn't just push them forward. They manipulated gravity itself, sliding through space like stones skipping across water. What should have taken hours took 90 seconds. They crossed the distance, from the moon to the alien fleet before the Calreth could even begin to restore their systems. "Contact in 10 seconds, reported Lieutenant Jake Morrison from the tactical station. "All boarding teams are ready." The 6 human ships split up, 2 converging on each of the largest alien vessels. They moved with precision, their AI systems calculating angles and velocities that human pilots couldn't manage alone. Magnetic clamps engaged as they locked onto the alien hulls. Cutting lasers began their work. On the Eternal Judgment, Vrenkal felt the vibration through his deck. "Something is attaching to our hull. Port side, sections 7 and 12. "Repel boarders," he commanded. His crew grabbed their plasma rifles and moved to defensive positions. The Calreth were warriors. They had fought boarding actions before. They knew how to defend their ships, but they had never fought humans. The hull breach was surgical and fast. A circular section of the outer hull simply fell away, and through the gap came figures in armored suits that seemed to shimmer and shift. Sergeant Amy Cooper led the first team through the breach. The combat suits they wore were masterpieces of engineering. They enhanced strength, provided complete life support, and included adaptive camouflage that made them hard to see and harder to target. The Calreth guards opened fire with their plasma weapons. Bright bolts of superheated gas shot down the corridor. But the humans were already moving, their training taking over. They used corners for cover, moved in coordinated pairs, and returned fire with weapons that spat metal projectiles at hypersonic speeds. The Calreth had powerful weapons, but they were slow. Each plasma rifle needed time to charge between shots. The human weapons just kept firing. The Calreth wore armor, but it was designed to stop energy weapons. The solid projectiles punched through like it wasn't there. Cooper's team moved through the ship like they had practiced it 1,000 times because they had. Every corridor was a potential ambush point. Every junction was approached with caution, but they never stopped moving forward. The suit computers fed them tactical data, showing enemy positions detected by motion sensors and thermal imaging. The team moved as one unit, covering each other, advancing steadily toward the bridge. The Calreth fought bravely. They had been soldiers for generations, but they had never faced an enemy quite like this. An enemy that treated boarding actions as routine. An enemy whose technology was specifically designed to counter their advantages. An enemy that showed no hesitation and no fear. Vrenkal organized the final defense at the bridge entrance. 20 of his best warriors, the ship's entire marine detachment, formed a wall of firepower. When the humans came around the corner, they would face a killing field. But the humans didn't come around the corner. They threw small devices that bounced off the walls and rolled across the floor. Vrenkal had a moment to wonder what they were before they detonated. Not explosions, but flashbangs. Blinding light and deafening sound that overwhelmed Calreth senses for crucial seconds. The human team came through the smoke and confusion like ghosts. Cooper moved among the dazed defenders, her weapon targeting with computer-assisted precision. Her team followed, each member knowing exactly where the others were, what they were doing, moving like parts of a single organism. 11 minutes after the breach began, Sergeant Cooper stood on the bridge of the Eternal Judgment. Captain Vrenkal was on his knees, a human weapon pressed against his head, watching his crew being restrained with magnetic cuffs. Around the ship, similar scenes played out in every critical area. Engineering was secure, life support was secure, weapons control was secure. All teams report in, Cooper said into her helmet comm. The responses came back quickly. Team 2, engineering secure. Team 3, reactor room secure. Team 4, armory secure. Cooper nodded with satisfaction and opened a channel to the command center. Bridge is secure, ship is ours. Grant listened as the same report came in from all 6 boarding operations. Across all 12 alien ships, the story was the same. In less than 15 minutes, Earth had captured an entire fleet without destroying a single vessel. It was the most successful military operation in human history, and the public wouldn't know about it for months. Open a channel to all captured vessels, Harris ordered. Grant activated the communication system. Her voice was calm and professional as she spoke to the defeated aliens. Captain Vrenkal and all Calreth commanders, this is Earth Defense Command. Your vessels are now under our control. Your crews are prisoners of war and will be treated according to the laws of armed conflict. You came here to demonstrate overwhelming force. Consider this our demonstration. We will return you to your government with a message. Leave humanity alone. In his command chair, Vrenkal felt something he had never experienced in all his years of service. Not just defeat, but complete and total outmaneuvering. These humans had known they were coming, had tracked them, had prepared a perfect trap, had technology that matched or exceeded Calreth capabilities, and had executed a military operation with a precision that would have impressed the best Calreth commanders. Who are you? He asked quietly. Your planet shows no signs of this level of technology. Your people don't even have a unified world government. How do you have these weapons? Cooper's voice came through her helmet speaker, translated into his language. We've been preparing for you for 70 years. Every strange signal from space, every unexplained phenomenon, we took it seriously. While our people watched television and went to work and lived normal lives, a small group of us prepared for the day when someone from out there decided Earth looked like an easy target. She gestured to the view screen, where Earth hung in space, beautiful and blue and very much not conquered. You made a mistake. You assumed that because we fight among ourselves, we'd be easy to defeat. You didn't understand that all that fighting just made us better at war. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of combat. We learned hard, lessons from every battle, every defeat, every victory, and we never ever forgot them. Vrenkal looked at his crew, at the human soldiers standing guard at his captured ship. "What will you do with us?" "We're going to patch up your systems enough for you to fly home," Cooper replied. "We're going to load you up with complete records of this encounter. Videos, sensor data, everything. And you're going to show your leaders exactly what happened here. You're going to tell them that Earth is not interested in joining their empire, that any further attacks will be met with the same response, or worse." "They won't accept this," Frenkal said. "The Dominion has never been defeated by a single world. They'll send more ships." 3 months after the captured fleet returned to Dominion space, long-range sensors detected the response. 47 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. This time there were no warnings, no ultimatums, no chances to surrender. The Calreth Dominion had come for revenge. Admiral Kellen Shaw stood on the bridge of the EDS Valiant, humanity's first purpose-built warship. Around him, displays showed the approaching enemy fleet. His ship was one of 20 that formed Earth's defense fleet, and every vessel had been built in the frantic months since the first contact. They combined human engineering with captured alien technology, creating something unique to Earth. "They're not playing games this time," said Captain Henry Blake from the tactical station. "That much firepower could destroy our entire planet twice over." Shaw studied the formation. The Calreth were being careful this time. They approached in a tight defensive formation, shields at maximum, weapons ready. They had learned from their first mistake. They wouldn't underestimate humanity again. "All ships, this is Admiral Shaw. Go to battle stations. Activate all defensive systems. Make ready in all respects." He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew. "They want to fight. Let's show them what happens when you pick on someone who fights back." The Valiant and her sister ships moved to intercept. Behind them, the orbital weapons platforms powered up again. On Earth's surface, ground-based missile installations tracked the incoming fleet. And in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden weapon systems that had been placed over the past 3 months activated their targeting computers. The Calreth fleet commander watched the human ships approach. This time he had overwhelming numbers. This time his shields were configured to resist electromagnetic pulses. This time he would not be caught by surprise. These primitives had gotten lucky once. That luck was about to run out. "All ships open fire," he commanded. Space lit up with weapons fire. Plasma bolts and particle beams lanced across the darkness. The human ships scattered, breaking formation in what looked like panic. The Calreth pressed forward, confident in their numerical advantage, but the human formation wasn't panic. It was tactics. Lieutenant Maya Foster coordinated the attack from the Valiant's Combat Information Center. Her console showed thousands of small dots, each representing a combat drone no larger than a basketball. They had been released from the human ships and were now swarming toward the enemy formation. "Drone Swarm 1 is engaging," she reported. "Enemy point defense systems are tracking." The Calreth shot down hundreds of drones, their automated weapon systems working efficiently. But there were thousands of drones, and they moved in complex patterns that made targeting difficult. They weren't trying to destroy the big ships. They were creating chaos, overwhelming sensors, forcing the enemy to split their attention. "Main fleet, execute attack pattern Delta," Shaw ordered. The human ships used the distraction. They accelerated hard, their fusion drives pushing them to speeds the Calreth hadn't expected. They didn't charge straight at the enemy. Instead, they curved around, using the debris field from Jupiter's moons as cover, turning the three-dimensional battlefield into a maze where numbers mattered less than positioning. Shaw had studied every battle in human history. He knew that when facing superior numbers, you didn't meet them head-on. You used terrain. You divided their forces. You made them fight on your terms. The asteroid field became his terrain, and he used it ruthlessly. The Valiant emerged from behind a large asteroid, targeted a Calreth heavy cruiser, and fired her main weapons. The railguns launched projectiles at a fraction of light speed. No energy signature to detect. No warning. Just solid metal moving fast enough to punch through shields and armor. The Calreth cruiser shuddered as 3 projectiles tore through its hull. Explosions bloomed along its side. It tried to return fire, but the Valiant was already gone, ducking back behind cover. "Hit confirmed," Blake reported. "Enemy vessel is venting atmosphere. Looks like we got their reactor containment." The pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships would appear, fire, and disappear before the Calreth could respond effectively. The drones continued to swarm and distract. The orbital platforms fired long-range missiles that forced the enemy to maneuver. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and the Calreth were bleeding. But they were also learning. The fleet commander adjusted his tactics, splitting his force into smaller groups that could support each other. He used his own ships as bait, drawing human vessels into traps. 3 human ships took critical damage and were forced to withdraw. The battle became a grinding match, both sides taking losses, neither able to gain a decisive advantage. Then Shaw played his ace. "Maya, activate the Jupiter network," he ordered. Foster's fingers flew across her console. Jupiter network is active and firing. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were weapons platforms that humanity had been building for 3 months. They were powered by small fusion reactors and armed with the same electromagnetic pulse weapons that had disabled the first Calreth fleet. But these were more powerful, and there were more of them. The Calreth had adapted their shields to resist the pulse. But they hadn't adapted enough. The coordinated burst from 17 platforms overloaded the shields of 9 Calreth ships simultaneously. They didn't go completely dead like the first fleet, but their shields failed and their systems glitched at exactly the wrong moment. The human ships struck like sharks smelling blood. They focused all their firepower on the vulnerable vessels, targeting weapons and engines. 4 Calreth ships went silent, drifting helplessly. 5 more took critical damage. The Calreth fleet commander made a choice that no Dominion commander had made in 3,000 years. He ordered a retreat. "All ships, withdraw. Jump to faster than light on my mark." But Admiral Shaw wasn't done sending his message. "Open a channel to the enemy fleet," he ordered. The communication went out on all frequencies, making sure every Calreth ship received it. "This is Admiral Kellen Shaw of Earth Defense. You came here with 47 ships to destroy 1 world. We've crippled or destroyed 13 of your vessels and are prepared to continue this fight until none of you go home. But we're going to give you a choice. You can retreat now with your remaining ships, or you can stay and we'll show you what humans do when someone won't take no for an answer. Choose quickly." The Calreth commander looked at his tactical display. His fleet was scattered. His casualties were mounting, and these humans showed no sign of giving up. For the first time in Dominion history, a fleet chose survival over victory. The remaining Calreth ships powered up their faster-than-light drives and jumped away, leaving debris and damaged vessels behind. On the Valiant's bridge, a cheer went up from the crew. They had done it. Against overwhelming numbers, they had won. Shaw let them celebrate for a moment before calling for order. "Status report. How bad are our losses?" Blake checked his displays. 3 ships heavily damaged but salvageable. 2 more with moderate damage. Casualties are estimated at 47 crew across the fleet. We captured 4 intact Calreth vessels and destroyed 9 more. Call it a solid victory, Admiral. But Shaw wasn't celebrating. He knew what this meant. They'll come back. Next time with even more ships. Next time with better preparation. Back at Earth Defense Command, General Harris was having the same conversation with Commander Grant. "We won the battle but not the war," Harris said. "The Dominion isn't going to accept 2 defeats. They'll mobilize everything they have and come at us with their full strength." Grant pulled up intelligence reports that had been gathered from the captured Calreth vessels. According to their databases, the Dominion controls over 3,000 star systems. They have resources we can't match. If they come at us with their full military might, we can't win a straight fight. "Then we don't fight straight," Harris replied. "We need allies. We need to find other species that have fought the Dominion. We need to turn this from Earth versus the Calreth into something bigger." President Wells authorized the next phase of Earth's defense strategy. The Pathfinder initiative launched 2 weeks later. 12 ships equipped with faster-than-light drives reverse-engineered from captured technology began exploring nearby star systems. Their orders were clear: make contact with other intelligent species, find the Dominion's enemies, build a coalition. Captain Nicole Perry commanded the Pathfinder ship Pioneer. She was a career diplomat who had learned to think like a soldier, exactly the kind of person humanity needed for first contact missions. 3 months into their exploration, they found what they were looking for. The Zyron Collective existed on the edge of Dominion space. They were a confederation of 6 different species that had banded together for mutual defense. They had been fighting a slow, grinding war against Calreth expansion for 200 years. They were losing, but they hadn't surrendered. The first contact happened in a star system designated Epsilon Eridani. The Zyron scout ship detected the Pioneer, and expecting another Dominion vessel prepared to fight or run. Instead, they received a message in their own language. carefully translated from data gathered from Calreth computers. This is Captain Nicole Perry of the human vessel Pioneer. We are not part of the Calreth Dominion. We are explorers from a world called Earth. The alien ships appeared on a Tuesday morning without any warning. 12 massive vessels, each one larger than an aircraft carrier, positioned themselves in orbit above Earth's major cities. They came from a race called the Calreth, though humanity wouldn't learn that name until later. For now, they were just shapes in the sky that blocked out the sun. Captain Vrencal stood on the bridge of his warship, the Eternal Judgment. He had done this 18 times before with 18 different worlds. The pattern was always the same. Show up with overwhelming force, give them a simple choice, and watch them surrender. Sometimes they tried to fight with their primitive weapons. Sometimes they begged. Sometimes they just accepted their fate quietly. But they always surrendered in the end. He activated the communication system and broadcast his message to the planet below. The message went out in 47 different languages, all decoded from Earth's own radio and television signals. His words were simple and direct. People of Earth, you will submit to the authority of the Calreth Dominion. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your cities from orbit. You have 24 hours to comply with our demands. Prepare to receive our landing forces and accept your new place in the Empire. Vrencal turned off the transmission and looked at his crew. They were relaxed and confident. This was routine for them, just another backward world that needed to be brought into the fold. The sensors showed the usual panic down below. Communications were going crazy. Their military was scrambling. Their leaders were probably arguing about what to do. But deep beneath a mountain in Colorado, the reaction was very different. General Paul Harris stood in a command center that officially didn't exist. It was buried 3 miles underground, protected by layers of rock and concrete and technology that could survive almost anything. Around him, dozens of screens showed the positions of all 12 alien ships. His staff worked quietly at their stations, tracking every movement, every energy signature, every detail they could gather. "How long have we been tracking them?" Harris asked. Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her console. "Since they crossed into our solar system 6 days ago, sir. We've been monitoring their approach the entire time." Harris nodded slowly. 6 days. The aliens thought they had surprised humanity. They thought Earth was defenseless and primitive. They had no idea that humanity had been waiting for this moment for 70 years. It had started in the 1950s, when the first strange objects appeared in Earth's skies. Most people thought they were weather balloons or natural phenomena, but a small group within the government took them seriously. Very seriously. They created Project Longshot, a black program hidden so deep that even most presidents didn't know about it. For 70 years, Project Longshot had prepared for this day. They built weapons in secret. They developed new technologies that the public never saw. They created contingency plans for every scenario they could imagine. And they waited. Now the wait was over. "What's the status of all Longshot assets?" Harris asked. Grant checked her displays. "All orbital platforms are operational and ready. The fusion reactors are at full power. Targeting systems are locked on all 12 enemy vessels. Ground installations are standing by. The stealth ships are in position behind the moon." "Good." Harris looked at the countdown clock on the main screen. 23 hours and 14 minutes remained. "We wait until the last minute. Let them think we're afraid. Let them think we're just running around in panic. We show our hand at 23 hours and 59 minutes. President Catherine Wells was in a secure bunker beneath Washington, D.C., when she received the briefing from Harris. She had known about Project Longshot for 6 months, ever since taking office. The revelation had shocked her. Earth had weapons that could rival anything in science fiction. Technologies that seemed impossible. And all of it had been built in complete secrecy. "You're certain this will work?" she asked Harris over the secure video link. "No, ma'am," Harris replied honestly. "We've never tested these systems against real alien technology. But our analysis suggests we have significant advantages they won't expect. They think we're primitive. That gives us the element of surprise." Wells nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Go on television. Address the nation. Look scared but defiant. Make them think we're helpless but too stubborn to surrender. Sell it and they'll believe we're no threat." So Wells did exactly that. She appeared on every screen in America, her face showing just the right amount of fear and determination. "We have been threatened by a force from beyond our world," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "They demand our surrender. They threaten our cities. But America has never surrendered to tyrants, and we won't start now. We may not have their technology, but we have something they don't understand. We have the will to be free. It was a good speech. Inspiring and defiant, but also making humanity sound desperate and outmatched. Up in orbit, Vrenkal heard the translation and felt satisfaction. This was the expected response. Brave words from a species that had no real options. They would surrender when they saw what his weapons could do. The hours ticked by slowly. On Earth, people watched the skies nervously. Some fled the cities. Others stayed in their homes, glued to their televisions. The internet was full of theories and panic and false hope. Nobody knew about Project Longshot. Nobody knew about the weapons hidden in orbit, disguised as old satellites and space debris. Nobody knew about the 6 ships waiting on the far side of the moon, powered by fusion drives and equipped with technology that would make the aliens' weapons look primitive. In the command center, Grant and her team made final preparations. Every system was checked and rechecked. Every contingency was reviewed. Every operator knew their role down to the smallest detail. They had drilled for this scenario 1,000 times. Now they would do it for real. 15 minutes, someone called out. Harris opened a secure channel to the president. Ma'am, we're ready to proceed. Once we start, there's no going back. I understand, General. You have my authorization. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth. 10 minutes. Grant felt her heart beating faster. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. All the training, all the simulations, all the planning. Now it was real. 5 minutes. The operator's fingers hovered over their controls. The weapon systems were armed and ready. The stealth ships reported they were in position. Everything was green. 2 minutes. Harris stood up and walked to the center of the command center. He looked at the faces of his people. They were ready. Humanity was ready. 1 minute. Grant started the countdown. 60 seconds to transmission. On the main screen, the alien ships hung in space like threats waiting to be fulfilled. But in 60 seconds, everything would change. The Calreth had made the same mistake that bullies always made. They assumed that being quiet meant being weak. They assumed that looking peaceful meant being helpless. 30 seconds. They were about to learn that humanity had spent its entire history fighting wars, that every weapon ever conceived had been studied and improved, that a species that could turn atoms into weapons wouldn't be conquered by anyone. 10 seconds. Harris took a deep breath. Commander Grant, you may proceed when ready. Grant's finger moved to the transmission button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Transmitting now. Every communication system on Earth broadcast the same message simultaneously. It went out on every frequency and every language directly to the alien fleet. The message was simple and direct, and it was addressed to Captain Vrenkal by name. This is General Paul Harris of Earth Defense Command. You have made 3 mistakes. First, you assumed we are primitive. Second, you assumed we are defenseless. Third, you assumed we value our lives more than our freedom. You now have 60 seconds to power up your faster-than-light drives and leave our solar system. This is your only warning. After 60 seconds, we will show you what humans do to those who threaten our world. In orbit, Vrenkal stared at his communication screen in surprise. They knew his name. They knew his ship's designation. They had been tracking him. For the first time in his long career, he felt a small flutter of doubt, but only for a moment. He was Calreth. They were primitives. Whatever tricks they had, whatever defiance they showed, it wouldn't matter against his fleet's firepower. Target their largest city, he ordered his weapons officer. Prepare to fire. The countdown reached 0, and then everything changed. The Dominion Council met on their throne world, a planet called Calrethon Prime that had been the center of their empire for 3 millennia. The chamber was vast and ancient, filled with representatives from 1,000 conquered worlds. But today the council faced something unprecedented. A single world had not only resisted but had won, twice. And now that world was building an alliance. High Counselor Threnvok stood before the assembly. He was old even by Calreth standards, his scales dulled by age, but his mind still sharp. We have underestimated the humans. Analysis of both battles shows they possess technology equal to our own. Their tactics are unpredictable and effective. They learn quickly and adapt faster. Counselor Marthek, younger and more aggressive, interrupted. They are one world. One small planet with no colonies and limited resources. We are an empire of thousands of worlds. The solution is simple. We mass our forces. We commit the Grand Fleet. We crush them before they can spread beyond their system. But the intelligence reports complicated that simple plan. Human ships had been detected at multiple locations in Dominion space. Not warships, but scouts. Fast vessels that appeared, gathered data, and vanished before they could be intercepted. They were mapping Dominion territory, studying their defenses, gathering information. The humans weren't waiting to be attacked again. They were preparing to take the fight to the Dominion. On Earth, the public knew they had won 2 battles. What they didn't know was the scale of the mobilization happening in secret. President Catherine Wells stood in an orbital shipyard that officially didn't exist, hidden behind the moon where Earth-based telescopes couldn't see it. Stretched before her were construction frames holding 37 ships in various stages of completion. Director Greg Barnes of Project Longshot walked beside her, pointing out features. These are the new cruiser class. Faster than anything the Dominion has. Better shields, more efficient weapons. We took everything we learned from the captured vessels and improved on it. Wells watched workers in spacesuits moving across the hull of the nearest ship. How long until the fleet is ready? 6 months for the first wave. A year for full deployment. But here's the thing, Madam President. A fleet isn't enough. We need forward bases, early warning systems, and we need allies who can watch our back. The Xyron are a start. But there are other species out there. Some conquered by the Dominion, some fighting them, some just trying to survive on the edges of their territory. We need to find them all. We need to build a real coalition. The Pathfinder initiative expanded. What started as 12 ships grew to 40. They spread out across nearby space, making contact with species that had never heard of Earth. Some were primitive and couldn't help. Some were advanced but isolated. But a precious few, were exactly what humanity needed. Species that had fought the Dominion and survived. Species tired of living in fear. Species willing to stand together against the Empire. Captain Nicole Perry's Pioneer discovered the Menthak Confederacy 4 months after the first contact with the Xyron. The Menthak were a silicon-based species that lived in the asteroid fields of their home system. They couldn't easily travel to other worlds, but they had developed incredible defensive technology. Their weapons platforms could make any star system nearly impossible to invade. We have fought the Dominion for 50 years, the Menthak leader told Perry through their translation system. His form looked like living crystal, refracting light in beautiful patterns. They tried to take our resources. We made the cost too high. Now they leave us alone but watch us always, waiting for weakness. What if you didn't have to fight alone? Perry asked. What if there was a coalition? Multiple species sharing technology and supporting each other? The Menthak leader's crystalline structure seemed to shimmer with interest. This coalition, Earth leads it? Earth started it. But we don't lead. We're equals. Each species contributes what they do best. The Xyron have intelligence networks. Earth has weapons and tactics. The Menthak could provide defensive systems that would make any coalition world nearly impossible to conquer. Show me more about this Earth. Show me how you defeated the Dominion. Perry showed him everything. The recordings of both battles. The technology humans had developed. The tactics they had employed. And most importantly, the determination that humanity had shown. The refusal to surrender even when facing overwhelming odds. The Menthak leader watched in silence, then made a decision that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Menthak Confederacy will join your coalition. We will share our defensive technology. In exchange, you will help us build ships that can leave our system. Together we will be stronger. Back on Earth, Commander Lisa Grant coordinated the growing alliance from the expanded command center. The room had grown since the first contact. Now it had representatives from 4 different species, all working together to coordinate their defense. The Dominion knows what we're doing, she told the assembled officers and diplomats. They're watching us build this coalition. They're gathering their forces. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big. Lieutenant Jake Morrison pulled up reports from deep space sensors. We're detecting increased military activity throughout Dominion space. Ships are being pulled from garrison duty and concentrated in staging areas. They're preparing for a major offensive. Cleth, the Xyron representative, studied the data with his multiple eyes. This matches historical patterns. When the Dominion faces serious resistance, they respond with overwhelming force. They will bring hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. They will try to break the coalition before it grows stronger. Then we need to be ready, Grant said. How long do we have? Based on their logistics and preparation time, 6 to 8 months. Maybe less if they rush. 6 months. It wasn't much time, but humanity had learned to work fast. Earth's shipyards went into overdrive. The orbital construction facilities expanded. On Earth's surface, factories that had once made cars and computers now produced weapons and ship components. The entire planet was mobilizing for war, and this time the public knew it. President Wells addressed the world on every screen and every channel. My fellow citizens of Earth, we stand at a turning point in human history. We are no longer alone in the galaxy. We have met other intelligent species and we have made friends. But we have also made an enemy. The Calreth Dominion will not accept our independence. They are coming with a force designed to crush us and break our will. They think we will surrender when we see their fleet. They are wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource on this planet is now dedicated to one purpose: survival. Not just for Earth, but for all the species that have joined us. We will build ships. We will forge weapons. We will prepare defenses that will make any attack cost more than the Dominion is willing to pay. And if they still come, we will show them what happens when you threaten humanity and its allies. We will show them that we meant what we said. Stop attacking! Or we stop pretending to be civilized. The speech galvanized Earth. People volunteered for military service in numbers not seen since World War II. Engineers worked around the clock designing new weapons. Scientists pushed the boundaries of technology, combining human innovation with alien science to create things neither species could have built alone. But it wasn't just about military preparation. Admiral Kellen Shaw understood that the next battle wouldn't be won by ships and weapons alone. It would be won by coordination, by trust, by different species working together as a unified force. He stood in a training facility in orbit, watching human soldiers work alongside Zyron warriors and Menthak technicians. They were learning each other's languages, each other's tactics, each other's ways of thinking. This is the real advantage, Shaw said to Captain Henry Blake. The Dominion conquers species and keeps them separated. They rule through division. We're building something different, a real alliance where everyone has a voice. Blake watched a human sergeant teaching a Zyron soldier how to use human weapons. Think it'll be enough? When the Grand Fleet arrives, when we're facing hundreds of their best ships, Shaw smiled grimly. It'll have to be, because we're not going to surrender. We're not going to run. We're going to stand right here and show the galaxy that the Age of Empires is ending, that the future belongs to free people who choose to stand together. The months passed quickly. Ships rolled out of the orbital yards. Defensive platforms were positioned throughout the solar system and in allied space. Sensor networks spread across hundreds of star systems, creating an early warning system that would give the coalition time to prepare. Training continued. Technology was shared. The coalition grew stronger, and in Dominion space the Grand Fleet assembled. 300 warships, including the most powerful vessels the Calreth had ever built. Each ship was crewed by experienced warriors. Each captain had won battles against multiple species. Each admiral had conquered worlds. They gathered in the outer reach, a staging area that had been used for major military operations for 1,000 years. Supreme Fleet Commander Korvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He had fought in 40 campaigns and never lost. He had watched the recordings of the defeats at Earth, and the Dominion Grand Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships materialized in perfect formation, their shields glowing with power, their weapons charging. It was the largest military force the Calreth had assembled in 2 centuries. Supreme Fleet Commander Korvax looked at his displays with satisfaction. This would be over quickly, but his satisfaction lasted only moments, because waiting for him, arranged in a defensive line that stretched across the approach to Earth, was a fleet he hadn't expected to see. Not just human ships, but vessels from multiple species, Siren warships with their distinctive organic designs, Menthak platforms that looked like floating crystals, ships from species he didn't recognize. The Primitives had built an alliance. Commander Lisa Grant stood in the Coalition Command Center, watching the enemy fleet on her screens. Around her, officers from 4 different species coordinated the defense. She opened a channel that would broadcast to every ship in both fleets. This is Commander Lisa Grant of Earth Defense to Supreme Fleet Commander Korvax. You have entered the territory of the Coalition of Free Worlds. This is your final warning. Leave now, or face the combined military might of 7 species who are done with Dominion expansion. You have 60 seconds to begin your withdrawal. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Korvax heard the translation and made a gesture of dismissal. 60 seconds. These creatures still think they can threaten us. All ships, prepare to advance. We will break their line and proceed directly to their home world. But as his fleet began to move forward, something strange happened. Space itself seemed to shimmer and ripple around them. Alarms began sounding across his bridge. Commander, our faster-than-light drives are not responding. Something is interfering with our dimensional engines. What do you mean interfering? The science officer checked his readings, confusion and growing fear on his face. There are artificial gravity wells throughout this system. Dozens of them. They're creating interference patterns that prevent faster-than-light travel. We're locked in normal space. Korvax felt a chill run through him. Locked in normal space meant they couldn't retreat quickly. Couldn't maneuver the way their tactics required. They were trapped in a battle of the enemy's choosing. Identify the source of these gravity wells. Destroy them. Working on it, Commander. They appear to be small artificial constructs positioned at strategic points throughout the system. But there are too many. Even if we destroy some, others maintain the interference pattern. This was Project Omega, humanity's newest weapon, based on research into gravitational manipulation, small automated stations that could generate localized gravity fields. Individually, they were weak. Together, they could lock down an entire star system. The Coalition had spent 6 months positioning them throughout the solar system, all in preparation for this moment. Admiral Kellen Shaw commanded the Coalition fleet from the EDS Valiant. He watched the enemy formation start to shift, saw them realize their predicament. Now is the time to act. All ships execute Attack Plan Delta. Zyron forces engage their left flank. Menthak platforms provide long-range support. Human fleet with me. We're going right down their center. What followed was the largest space battle the galaxy had seen in living memory. The Dominion fleet, despite their numerical advantage, was fighting on the Coalition's terms. Unable to use their faster-than-light drives for tactical maneuvers, they were forced into a straight fight. And that was exactly what the Coalition had trained for. Human ships, smaller and faster than the Dominion vessels, wove through the enemy formation like fighters against bombers. Their railguns fired solid projectiles that didn't care about energy shields. Their missiles carried warheads designed specifically to overwhelm Calrith point defense systems. The Zyron attacked from the side, their ships working in coordinated groups that the Dominion couldn't counter. They had been fighting the Calreth for 200 years and knew every trick, every tactic, every weakness. Now they had allies and better weapons, and they used both ruthlessly. The Menthak platforms hung back, their powerful weapons reaching across vast distances. Each shot was calculated by quantum computers, each beam precisely targeted at weak points in enemy shields. They didn't need to get close. They just needed to provide covering fire while the faster ships did their work. Lieutenant Maya Foster coordinated the drone swarms again, but this time there were thousands more. They filled the space between the fleets, creating a chaotic battlefield where sensors struggled to distinguish threats from decoys. The Dominion ships fired wildly, wasting ammunition on drones while real threats slipped through. On the Eternal Dominion, Korvax watched his careful formation crumble. His ships were taking damage faster than they could inflict it. These species fought like they had trained together for years, each one covering the other's weaknesses, each one exploiting any opening. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. The larger fleet was supposed to win. Numbers were supposed to matter, but he was a warrior. He would not accept defeat easily. All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship. If we kill their command, their coordination will collapse. 20 Dominion warships turned their weapons on the Valiant. Admiral Shaw saw them coming. Evasive maneuvers, route all power to forward shields, and somebody get me fire support. The Valiant shook as energy weapons slammed into her shields. Alarm sounded. Damage reports poured in. But before the Dominion ships could finish their attack, help arrived. Siren warships interposed themselves, their shields absorbing fire meant for the Valiant. Menthek beams struck the attacking Dominion vessels, forcing them to divert power to their own defenses. This was what the Coalition meant. Not every species fighting alone, but everyone fighting together, protecting each other, supporting each other. standing together against the threat. But Commander Grant knew that military victory wasn't enough. The galaxy was watching this battle. Every species within sensor range was tracking the fight. What happened here would echo across hundreds of worlds. It needed to send a message. She activated the wideband broadcast system, transmitting on every frequency, in every language the Coalition database contained. To all worlds watching this transmission, this is the Coalition of Free Worlds. The Calreth Dominion came to Earth demanding our surrender. We refused. They came again with more ships. We won. Now they've come with their grand fleet intent on our destruction. Watch what happens when an empire tries to extinguish species that refuse to die. The broadcast included real-time footage from the battle. It showed Coalition ships working together. It showed Dominion vessels taking damage and retreating. It showed what coordination and determination could achieve against numerical superiority. But most importantly, it showed that the Dominion could be beaten. Throughout Dominion space on conquered worlds where species had lived under Calreth rule for generations, beings watched the broadcast. They saw the impossible happening. They saw the mighty Grand Fleet being fought to a standstill. They saw hope. On Calrethon Prime, the Dominion Council watched with growing horror. This wasn't just a military defeat. This was the unraveling of everything their empire was built on. The myth of Dominion invincibility was dying in real time, broadcast across the galaxy. Back in the battle, Korvax made the hardest decision of his career. His fleet had lost 30% of its ships. The Coalition forces were battered but holding. And most critically, his warriors were beginning to lose their confidence. They had been told this would be a simple conquest. Instead, they were locked in a desperate fight for survival. All ships, this is Supreme Commander Korvax. Begin systematic withdrawal. Form defensive positions and prepare to disengage once the gravity interference is cleared. But the Coalition wasn't going to let them leave without delivering the final message. Grant opened another broadcast, this one directed specifically at the retreating Dominion fleet. Commander Korvax, your fleet is withdrawing. We will allow this, but understand what this means. You came here with 300 ships to crush 7 species who chose to stand together. You failed, not because we had more ships, not because we had better technology, but because we were fighting for something you've forgotten: freedom, self-determination, the right to exist on our own terms. She paused, making sure every word was recorded and transmitted clearly. We didn't start this war. We didn't ask for your attention. We just wanted to be left alone. But since you wouldn't give us peace, we gave you war, and now you know the cost. The broadcast continued, and this time the message was for everyone. We are the Coalition of Free Worlds. We welcome any species that wants to join us as equals. We will defend any world that asks for our help, and we will oppose any empire that thinks conquest is acceptable. To the Dominion, hear this clearly. This is your last chance. Accept peace on equal terms, or the next fleet we send won't be defensive. It will be aimed at your homeworld. We've been civilized. We've shown restraint. We've given you chances to walk away. Keep pushing and we'll stop pretending to be civilized. The words echoed across the galaxy. Stop pretending to be civilized. It was a promise and a threat wrapped together. The Coalition had shown they could fight.